Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Bitcoin. It is time for another update and we are still currently within the area of resistance. Nothing significant has changed. However, within this internal movement to the upside, within the bounce from the current low within this area, we actually can identify some interesting developments within the smaller time frame that we will of course discuss and analyze today. But before we get into this data, I would like to go quickly through the large time frame for any of you who might be new. And here we have been tracking this quite basic interpretation of the Bitcoin chart, where we have a series of 1-2 setups we could be tracking for continuation to even higher prices. And this could be even another larger 1-2 setup, or could be built of a series of 1-2 setups. Now, the odds are most likely we have formed a more substantial top within a wave 1 within this area. Now, extensions are always possible, but even then, I would probably prefer to extend a little bit lower. We have not yet reached the area of support even for an internal 1-2 setup structure within this area, so I'm not saying we would not be able to push to higher prices and we might even reach the area of support before that, but I would not consider this to be the high probability area of support for a reversal. I would not necessarily consider this to be the main accumulation zone, because while it might create a nice reaction to the upside from that area, I would still see this with a high risk to extend to even lower prices, because once again we might have a more substantial top in place. Across many stocks, in fact, we see a potential topping area to be reached here in the near term. Now, we will still be looking for levels of support for continuation to higher prices on this chart and the others, but at the moment, from a larger time frame perspective, I am focusing at the accumulation area only to start here at the 31k level. This is actually a pretty strong level. It has even additional structural support around this area in the previous bull market. But I would certainly not expect this level to be reached in a direct fashion. Yeah, I wouldn't expect this movement to the downside to extend to that level in a direct fashion. So looking for additional levels of support might be helpful for identifying an attempt to push to higher prices, perhaps in a larger A, B, C structure that would ultimately reach our large area of support. But even in that case, I would not be looking for a reversal before identifying a reliable structure from a smaller time frame, yeah, even in the wave B. And it so happens that we might actually be getting that, because even though our structure in the wave C to the downside we have been tracking is incomplete, we may actually see a break above the area of resistance and we may form a bottom sooner rather than later within this overall correction we have had here in the last, what is it, like 4 or 5 months? Yeah, something like that. So before we actually get into the smaller time frame here and the details, I wanted to briefly mention our channel newsletter. You can find the sign up link in the description. It is completely free and we will provide you our monthly top picks. You will get a concise list of the stocks we are focusing on that we find interesting for an opportunity, for a position in the near future. Yeah, and you can follow along with us on YouTube. Now, if you enjoy the content and you want to support us, you can check out our channel membership. The link for that is in the description as well, or you can click the join button and you will get access to additional content, yeah, videos that we really cannot even post publicly because they do not perform and they hurt the channel's algorithm. Now, if you want the full details for the newsletter and the membership, I recommend that you watch the channel update video. It is on the homepage, or you can watch it by clicking the join button. It is very short, a 5-minute video. Now, back to the chart. Within this structure, we have identified very clearly, very early on, that we had an initial 5-wave move to the downside within this area. We highlighted that after a 3-wave correction into our area of resistance, we should be highly prepared for at least another 5-wave move to the downside. It was our signal not to look for a long position within this area, yeah, to be prepared for an extension to lower prices, and an extension we got, yeah, we pushed quite overwhelmingly low within this wave 3. We really didn't even need to extend this low, but nonetheless, it is now expected to be complete. We wouldn't be looking for any additional extensions within this wave tree. However, this does not mean the larger wave C is complete itself. Now, there are many ways we can track on this chart continuation to higher prices. I would be able to provide even a larger area of support for the larger time frame that would allow us to look for higher prices, but it's not one I would consider a high probability. It's not one I would trust. And the same thing can be applied for the smaller time frame here, which means that even if we break the 50% retracement, it's not an automatic sign that this structure to the downside has failed and that we will be going to new all-time highs. Even this larger wave C to the downside may extend in a quite overwhelming fashion before a more substantial bottom would be in place. Yeah, I could be looking here for an ending diagonal, in that case in a larger 1-2 setup. Many options. I could be looking for the larger correction where I could consider this wave C or even a different corrective pattern to be complete in a larger A, B, C structure, for example. The options are there, but we are looking for the high probability patterns, the impactful structures that would provide us relevant levels of support and relevant levels of resistance. So internally right now, I want to highlight directly that within this wave 4, if we form another high, if we form a reset, I would find it very, very likely that we would have already succeeded in forming a bottom in this wave to the downside, that we wouldn't be looking for extensions to lower prices internally. Why? Because the proportions would be far exceeded with what we had in this supposed wave 2 correction. So that would be, for me, the first strong signal that a more substantial bottom would be in place within this wave to the downside. Might still see extensions lower within other structures, but within this pattern, I would consider that very, very likely it will succeed in not forming a fifth wave in this area in a 5-wave pattern, yeah? Could be a different structure, could be a wave C, but not a fifth wave, yeah? Now, in certain specific cases, it might not mean much, but I believe there is actually a very good chance we will even break the area of resistance based on the current structure within the smaller time frame here. And I'm identifying, even within this initial push to the upside, a potential initial 5-wave structure within this area. Yeah, I could track this to be even potentially an impulse, and I would be looking to have an initial 1-2 setup. But not only that, we have actually managed to form another 5-wave move to the upside within this area. Now, it could be that this has formed the 5-wave move to the upside and the top is here and this is just an overshoot. I wouldn't overthink this structure exactly, but I would be watching for the area of support for both of these structures. So it is highly important for this idea of a potential 1-2 setup that we hold the 62.6k level for continuation directly to higher prices, and I will be tracking this as a potential 1-2 setup. Does it need to unfold as a 5-wave pattern? Clearly not. This could be a wave A at the same time with no change to our expectations, at least for the next wave to the upside, maybe in terms of the target, but not in terms of how we would expect it to unfold. Now, we would be looking, of course, for an internal area of support within this structure because, yeah, here we have another wave on up, we have here another wave to down, and we are looking for the third, fourth, and the fifth to complete potentially this wave 3. Now, once again, I want to highlight this structure, this 5-wave pattern could just as well work out within a wave C to the upside. Even if we succeed in building this pattern to higher prices, once this structure is complete, the likely portion of this uptrend would be complete. We wouldn't need additional extensions to higher prices afterwards to complete a supposed ABC structure, okay? I want that to be clearly understood. Now, in terms of support for continuation to higher prices for this structure, I would be looking at the 66.2k level as the last level of support. Again, I would probably prefer that the wave 1 top would be considered to be this high, in which case we would have already even reached the 61.8% retracement in this wave 2 correction, and we might have actually even formed a bottom. So right now I have a 3-wave pattern into the 61.8% retracement, and we see a tiny relief rally that has formed throughout the day. Yeah. Now we also formed this structure to the downside today as well, but I personally wouldn't recommend going within an even smaller time frame than this. So in the 15-minute, sure, it might be difficult to identify here clearly a 5-wave move, but I could see here a tiny 1-2 setup built in, a 3rd wave down, 4th wave up, and a 5th wave within this area. And this could easily classify as an A, B, C structure to the downside complete. And in terms of the structure itself, now even this structure looks decently healthy, although it is still too early to tell. But I'm certainly looking for a possible reversal to have already started. Now, in terms of resistance, we don't have anything highly specific for continuation to lower prices. You can expect a reversal at any point. I would strongly recommend that you focus on the levels of support for continuation to higher prices. Don't wait for the pattern and the exact count to be given to you within such structures. Focus on the levels of support for continuation to higher prices. You know that below the 66.3k level, there is a very good chance this structure, this 1-2 setup, would have very good chances of failing. Yeah, even if you want to use the 66.2k level as the last level of support, doesn't change much. You would still have a clear identification of where you expect this structure, this idea of a direct extension to higher prices to fail. And again for the larger wave 2, the 62.6k level. Now in terms of resistance, nothing highly specific that would tell us we should expect continuation to lower prices, yeah? We had here a potential initial 5-wave move to the downside, but we had our 3-wave correction and then the next 5-wave move to the downside. We completed the likely structure, we completed the likely pattern, and now there is nothing strongly suggesting to us that we should expect continuation to lower prices. And even though I could provide you 3 or 4 different interpretations that could allow us to extend still to lower prices, I would probably focus on this swing high around the 70k level, yeah, the top we have formed today, then the wave 1 top as the next level to take out, and then I would be looking at the levels of resistance, but I think we have actually even broken these, yeah, we have already pushed above the 70.6k level, yeah, we have already broken the levels of resistance. So for me, it is extremely important that we break these previous swing highs, the 70k level, the 71k level, and then the 72k level, each providing additional confirmation that we will see extensions to higher prices. And to be honest, probably the first level at the 70k is the most important. Now, there really isn't much else to add in terms of resistance. We could be tracking a generic area for a potential extension in a WXY or even a larger ABC structure here in a wave 2 within this area. And we will be looking at the levels of resistance up to the 70.2k level. Yeah, very much in line with the previous swing high from today. But for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.